The narrow road, I think Jesus said, it's the only one never blazed before by another, lacking a sight line. They seek the precedent as a way in, as an access point, and it started with the desire to reach the common core of eternity. Something here we have quantified, and the image on the penny actually represents something. Something different, the vent that's always breathing. I think the stone-cold performance is leading them to an isolated state of consciously contained petrification. In through the outdoor, sort of the same as us. An easy way to understand quantified petrification while looking to the back for access and the front for form or identity, is the franchise movement. The purchaser of the experience is preceded by anticipation to preference. The preference is decided in the purchase, and every anticipation is to or becomes the objective of filling out the form of the preceding reference. How to do things right, to be accurate for them, requires this pattern frame of alignment. Something that was discovered elsewhere now here also. Ultimately, it's agreeing with the former image or the content as the point of everything. The actions lag behind and mostly try to keep up with the precedent of expectation, but from behind the frame. They can be hired, fired, brought in, kicked out, sort of like, to quote my favorite cartoon, slavery with extra steps. A child of inheritance can copy a concept with a critique of repetition. It's still mental slavery, and so like a child of inheritance they often resent the precedent. You think that Christianity is similar. An engraven image, an act of filling in precedent. The details of someone else's life with their own description. SC. Mirrors on the ceiling, pink champagne on ice, I think that's it. Back to first principles, but I should probably sit up and smoke. Okay. SC. There is a difference. Someone suggested mysteriously to me once, unless you turn it inside out you won't receive the blessing, and it bothered me for several days. I realized eventually, for the sake of my own satisfaction, that it was a reference to the water and wine parable. They don't want us to access what is valuable just by taking in and possessing, then distributing for money, because we would never be able to relate with the experience. So you're saying the water is the content when we find it, what it was, what it became, what it is when we began to get to know it. The wine is where we go from here, what we do with it. SC. What it becomes, but it's centrifugal, the outpouring, the coming out. Repetition is futile. I thought it was resistance, laugh. SC. Not really for us, it's the purpose of dark matter, light mass. Back to your original question. Matter, from what I understand of it. Let's go back to first principles. Imagine you are a Quaker, and your first experience with the outside world is to a city like Portland or San Francisco. The corners, the planes, brick by brick of the first layer of the pyramid are things like Jesus, but also things like dress. Things like a preference for being finished, being evolved to the point that is healthy not just in life but death. The content for every decision is pre-manifest. That's what I mean by orientation proceeds first principle, in terms of development to a relevant meaning of form or expression. Now imagine a pentagram symbol with the outer layer or circle, and then several triangles, and think of those like stained glass. Suppose as a Quaker you decided you could keep Jesus but drop the dress code and the desire for predictable simplicity. You move to Portland or San Francisco. All that has happened is a vertical flipping of all the angles. It's like changing the colors from inside the church to the stained glass walls. Something that is more pleasant, something more to preference, something like you feel you had a part in, rearranging the angles, determinations of color as a preference statement, etc. The former frame will always be in view, and the new frame is the vivid experience, but for us it is different. The corners relay a structural alignment that have to be adhered to. Love your neighbor in a way only we could mean it, then on from there to a quantified infinity of experience. The planes though or the circle around the square is not for us mnemonic memories of containment for identity but obscure horizon. What no one saw, what never contextually existed, what hasn't been explored because there has yet to be a creation. Combinational amplification is exclusive to the creation process, but you can get a skill set. TM. Find a penny, pick it up all day long, you'll have good luck. SC. Yes, they find the penny and attribute it to karma. The image on the front is what they reach for, then turn it over for a path to progress. TM. They enter the vent mechanism. SC. Yes, that's it. I feel like it's been a long journey for them and us. The angels are weary of overseeing the project. The motivation lies to the facts, like you said, of no more resistance or harnessing of our progress. TM. It's amazing you can make this sound like common sense, and yet I've never heard anything like it before. SC. I experienced the same sensation when they taught me about the cross, what people were reaching for, the tests, the terms they demand to be satisfied. This time their progress will be finished. Them and ours, that is the thinking. Think of it like this: imagine a pyramid and a casket, an image on the outside, how that happens. When we, I say for myself, lifelong progress, some people seem to hit sooner, express originality much earlier. You think of Mozart or Jimmy Page. They could have lived life playing other people's music easily with what they were born with, but they both sort of exploded with the multiplied capacity of that performance to something completely original in the context of our knowing. Stopping before we call down, drafting, maybe like a prodigy picking up on someone's tunes with ease. All we see is the music, a hood with no presence dressing out the details of a performance piece. Gaining form when you're still learning. But when we blaze a trail, a narrow gate or path where no one has been led down before, the image starts to form on the casket because something is gaining traction from the inside out. Before, a form was unrecognized. For the sake of simplicity, imagine this momentum is felt from the inside of the pyramid like a womb. The winds of the experience rise and all the contrails are checked. We keep leaning forward into the momentums, the winds gather and the forces of velocity now inside and out cause the pyramid walls to open. A vacuum updraft will force the lid on the coffin to release and suck out the presence from the inside and out. At that point people have gathered around the tip but from the outside. As the presence leaves and the top begins to open, the former reference will fly out like wind. Once that wind reference passes, a backdraft reference occurs, and they are basically staging or standing in line to be sucked into the former image, seeing the casket open and lacking an owner. They are sucked in from the top where they had climbed up from the outside, sucked into the reflective darkness of the casket. Their image becomes the intuition when they feel wind to the back of their head and the walls begin to close again. TM. Better act fast, haha. SC. That's it, limited time option. You're looking down on a pyramid for total content dispersal, meaning the sand that lays all around it, less or minus 0.01% from what I understand. Something with the prism of what's observable regarding the layers, not sure. It's kind of like remaining dependent on your talents even past a former success or series of successes. It keeps you moving and it's the purpose of our progress. This isn't a description of what's in your bank account, I don't want you to misunderstand. I'm not sure I played that part correctly, it did seem to play into the performance now that I think of it. Progress can be played out in many ways, not everything needs to be seen to be objectively creative. TM. I was just going to ask you, if there is no danger for an original person or something but you said keeps you moving, that might be it in terms of avoiding a static reference or legacy as a final achievement maybe. SC. The end of progress, the end of evolution, not for everyone at this point, just for yourself, that's the thinking. The reference regarding slavery. TM. Are you here to set the captives free, like Moses? SC. No. I think that was my intuition growing up, even in my business, but they prohibited it. I had to experience the sensations in order to stop, to reform my progress more to a habit of exercising. I imagine over time perhaps something similar for Einstein or Tesla. TM. You said that you are a first-time resonant in your story, there has to be more, or are you the only one left? SC. I don't know, but I do know that I've been inspired my whole life at least by someone. Imagine life without it. Inspiration for me is like using an inhaler, often unexpectedly. What I do know is no way out means north one. TM. I'm going to ignore that for now, may address it later, smile, but it seems like that song Lose Yourself. For them and as if I can say, in different directions. SC. Yes, it's like that, in franchising content you mean, harnessing position, eternal return. The momentum of our own journey of eternal recurrence, to quote Nietzsche and make it sound corny. I like the reference. TM. Everyone is busy finding vents of a previous momentum for access. Identity, profession. I think I see it. The Lincoln Memorial, stone imaging. SC. Yes, that seems to be how it works. TM. Mom's spaghetti, laugh. So in your story you say that Christians, people who buy franchises, ingest a family or steal a business, they're backdrafting because that is the actual momentum. Do you mean by physics or is it just psychology? SC. I mean it's their only opportunity. TM. Never let it go. SC. M&M's New World Order. It's psychological momentum, the way the mind works, but it is exceeded by relevance at the subatomic level regarding the electronic harness. The physics of it is destabilizing the electron portion of the atom and transferring it to a cylinder. TM. Lonely Road Scholar. SC. Doesn't make for a good father. Trademark.